April 14th, 1935, Black Sunday, the day the sky fell. Today, we step inside America's worst living conditions. A mountain of dirt, thousands of feet high, rolling across the plains. It was the end of the world for many. This is history reconstructed inside the Dust Bowl. The high plains were the epicenter. Once fertile, now a barren wasteland where nothing could grow. Chapter 1. The Hovel. Living in houses that were being swallowed by the earth itself. Inside, there was no escape. Dust settled on the floors, the furniture, and even the dinner plates. Eating was a struggle. Grit was in every mouthful of bread, every swallow of water. It was inescapable. They hung wet sheets over windows, desperate to breathe. But the mud would dry and the dust would win. Children slept with masks, their parents watching over them, terrified they would suffocate in the night. But the danger wasn't just physical, it was medical. A new plague was rising from the dirt. Chapter 2. The Brown Plague, dust pneumonia, the silent killer of the plains. Thousands fell ill. The fine silica acted like sandpaper on the lungs, causing internal scarring and fever. This wasn't just dirt, it was silica. Once it entered the lungs, the body had no way to clear it out. Teachers struggled to keep students safe. Goggles and masks became standard school equipment. Animals suffered most. Their stomachs were found filled with pounds of sand. The land was purging all life. Mothers swept their homes 10 times a day, but the dust always returned. It was a war they were losing. Eventually, the land broke the people's will. The Exodus was beginning. Chapter 3. The Exodus. Thousands of Okies fleeing the wasteland for the promise of the West. Route 66 became the road to survival, a desperate journey across half a continent. They slept in roadside camps, unwanted and feared by the very people they hoped would help them. At the border, they were met with bum blockades. The dream of California was becoming a nightmare. 2.5 million people were on the move. It was the largest migration in American history. If you find these reconstructions valuable, please subscribe. 92% of our viewers haven't joined us yet. Help us keep history alive. Every subscription helps us fund these deep dive reconstructions. Now, back to the government's response. Chapter 4. The New Deal. When Washington finally listened to the wind, President Roosevelt knew that to save the people, he had to save the soil. The war against dust had begun. The CCC began planting the Shelter Belt, 200 million trees to act as a wall against the wind. Farmers were paid to stop plowing in straight lines. They learned to work with the curves of the land. In 1939, the clouds finally broke. The first real rain in nearly a decade began to fall. It was a victory of science and survival, but the cost was a generation of trauma and lost homes. Chapter 5. The Stories of Resilience. The voices of those who stayed behind. One survivor wrote, "The silence after a storm was louder than the wind itself, a silence of despair." When the first harvest finally came, it felt like a miracle. The land was forgiving them. The exiles began to return. Not all of them, but enough to start again, rebuilding from the grit. Chapter 6. The Environmental Legacy. Is history repeating itself today? Modern dust storms are more frequent. The lessons of 1935 are being tested once again by a changing climate. Rising temperatures and falling water tables. The plains are at a crossroads once more. We have better tools now, GPS and soil sensors. But the core challenge remains the same. Respect the land. We preserve these stories so we don't have to live them again. Knowledge is our best defense. The Dust Bowl wasn't just an act of nature, it was an act of man, and the solution was an act of will. From the ashes of 1935, a new understanding was born. An understanding that we are part of the earth, not its masters. The spirit of resilience remains in every field that turns green and every heart that remembers. I'm your host, and this was the story of the Great Dust Bowl. Thank you for walking through history with us. Ambient wind sounds and somber orchestral music continues for the remaining duration, with occasional historical quotes appearing as text. Welcome back. While the dust eventually settled, the scars on the American soul remained. Today, we explore the social and political fallout of the Great Dust Bowl. In Washington, the disaster sparked a fierce political battle. Was this a natural catastrophe or a failure of policy? Scientists argued that the land had been over-farmed for decades. The Great Plow-Up had finally exacted its price. Chapter 8. The Political Fallout. A nation divided on how to heal its heartland. The economy of the plains collapsed completely. Banks failed, and with them, the dreams of thousands of families. The disaster didn't hit everyone equally. The poorest tenant farmers were the first to be displaced with nowhere to go. Minority communities faced a double crisis: environmental disaster and systemic exclusion from New Deal aid. The Dust Bowl exposed the deep cracks in the American social fabric. Survival often depended on who you knew and what you owned. Chapter 9. The Human Stories. Beyond the statistics were the lives of those who endured. Meet the Millers. Like many, they stayed because they had no choice. This was their land, and they wouldn't let it go. Everyday tasks became Herculean efforts. Washing clothes required water that was often more mud than liquid. Children grew up knowing only the taste of grit. Their playgrounds were the very storms that were killing their future. The elderly were particularly vulnerable. For them, the Dust Bowl felt like a betrayal by the land they had worked for decades. But in the darkness, community sparkled. Neighbors shared what little they had, from a cup of flour to a dry place to sleep. Resilience isn't just about surviving. It's about maintaining your humanity when everything else is turning to dust. Chapter 10. The Promised Land. For those who reached the West, the struggle was far from over. California was no paradise. They found work as seasonal pickers, living in squalor and earning mere pennies for days of back-breaking labor in the sun. Labor contractors exploited their desperation. It was a new kind of poverty found in a land of apparent plenty. Many turned to faith. Religious gatherings offered a sense of hope and a shared soul in a world that felt like it was ending. The Okie became a symbol of determination. They brought their music and their grit to the West, redefining the American identity. Chapter 10. The Voices of the Wind. How art and music captured the spirit of the era. Woody Guthrie's Dust Bowl ballads gave a voice to the voiceless. His music traveled the same roads as the Okies. John Steinbeck's writing immortalized the struggle. He didn't just tell a story, he painted a portrait of a suffering nation. Photographers like Dorothea Lange captured the faces of the crisis. These images became the conscience of America. Radio was the lifeline. It brought news, music, and the hope that somewhere the rain was falling. Artists and writers didn't just record history, they helped a suffering nation process its pain through the lens of creative expression. The art of the Dust Bowl wasn't a luxury, it was a necessity. It was how a people made sense of their suffering. Chapter 11. The Scientific Lesson. What we learned about the earth we tread upon. Soil scientists began to understand the mechanics of erosion. They realized that topsoil was a non-renewable resource on a human timescale. The crisis birthed the modern conservation movement. We learned that the land has limits that must be respected. The Shelter Belt Project changed the landscape forever. Those trees still stand today, silent sentinels against the wind. Today, we use satellites and sensors to monitor soil health, but the fundamentals haven't changed since 1935. Knowledge is power, but only if we use it. The lessons of the past are only valuable if we apply them to the challenges of today. Chapter 12. The Long Memory. How the Dust Bowl shaped the American identity. The American spirit was forged in the grit of the 30s, a spirit of grit, determination, and mutual aid. Our modern world is built on the foundations laid by those who survived. We owe them our prosperity and our vigilance. We teach our children about the Dust Bowl so they understand the delicate balance between humanity and nature. The story of the Dust Bowl is a story of a nation that learned the hard way. It's a story of survival against all odds. As we close this chapter, remember that the land is a living thing. Treat it with respect, and it will sustain us for generations to come. This was History Reconstructed. Thank you for joining us on this 19-minute journey into our shared past. I'm your host, signing off. Stay grounded and keep exploring. Don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives. History isn't just a record of what happened. It's a map for where we are going as a people. The spirit of 1935 is still here. A nation's strength is found in its soil, and its people's will to protect it together. Resilience remains our inheritance. In the darkest times, community was the only thing that didn't crumble. They rebuilt from grit, stronger and wiser. Faith and determination were the bedrock of survival. Education continued even in the harshest storms of the Great Depression. Technology and tradition worked hand in hand to heal the parched soil of the great American plains. We are stewards now. Sweat and grit rebuilt the heartland. The land eventually forgave those who cared for it with respect and scientific knowledge. The horizon is clear once again. Every home tells a story of survival and the unshakable human spirit that defines us. The next generation inherited a land transformed by lesson. The music of the plains carries the voices of the dust. Never forget the day the sun went dark. Gratitude for the rain, respect for the wind, and love for the soil we tread. Feeding a nation, rebuilding a dream. The Dust Bowl, a lesson for all time. Stay curious, stay grounded, keep exploring. Resilience is not just about surviving, it's about maintaining humanity when everything else around you turns to dust. The shelter belt changed the landscape forever. Trees stand as silent sentinels against the wind today, protecting our homes. Soil scientists learned topsoil is non-renewable. We must guard the fragile earth we tread upon with every seed we plant. The social safety net was born in the grit. No American faces disaster alone anymore. We are a nation redefined by crisis. Knowledge is our most powerful conservation tool. We teach history so it never becomes our present again. Respect the land. Respect the land, and it will sustain us. This was History Reconstructed. Thank you for walking through history with us. Every harvest is a miracle of sweat and science, rebuilding from the grit, stronger and hopefully wiser for the journey. Lessons of 1935 are more relevant than ever. Climate change tests our will to protect the soil and our future today. The American spirit was forged in the grit of the 30s. Grit, determination, and mutual aid will always prevail here. Never forget the legacy of those who stayed. Their resilience is our inheritance. Thank you for joining us today.